Good evening, everyone. This is Elwin Green, and you're here for Homewood Nation Presents Tech Tuesday with Shimira Williams. Hello there, Ms. Williams.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Doing well, doing well. Great to see you. So, any of you who have seen either of the announcements will know that tonight we're beginning a new 8-part series here on Tech Tuesday, and we're calling it Taking Your Business Online. And we're looking at the steps that you need to take before you even call that web designer and say, hey, I'd like to have a website. Great thing to do. But there's some stuff that you need to really have in place before you even do that in order to get the full benefit actually from having someone work on your website for you. So with that in mind, we're going to just sort of begin the conversation or the discussion by talking about domain names. And for anybody who might not know, the domain name is the actual address that you give people for your website. For instance, the domain name for Homewood Nation is homewoodnation.com. So we want to begin just by looking at a couple of questions about domain names themselves, beginning with why is it important to own your own domain name? So tell us about that, Ms. Williams.
Well, owning your own domain name has two primary benefits. One, it secures branding for yourself. I own productivityllc.com as well as .info. As well, it's also a hub for all of your information and online content that you publish.
Okay, and it's also owning the domain, that your domain name itself is a way also of not having someone else grab it.
Correct.
Right. So, so you want to be Productivity LLC. You don't want someone else out there saying, "Oh, I think I'd like to call my, domain Productivity," and grab your name.
And here's a prime example. I also own techstart.org because my childcare facility is TechStart, but there is already a techstart.com. And so we have had conversations about the usage of TechStart because we both feel like we should be able to use it.
Okay. We're going to move a little deeper into that in another second. But generally speaking, what guidelines or tips can you offer for choosing a domain name?
Well, when you choose a domain name, one, you want it to align to your company's name or goals or mission. It doesn't necessarily have to be your company name. Productivity LLC made sense. TechStart made sense. But I've owned other domains. I've had a client and their domain they wanted was already secured. So we had to play on their organizational name as well as mission so that it's something that all of your customers should recognize. It's not a second thought to them to type in that domain name. So Homewood Nation is perfect for Homewood Nation. I mean, if you named it Nation of Homewood, people would probably get a little confused. But it should automatically ring into your brand or organizational name. So when you're thinking about it, if the domain name you want is already used, play off of something that you're known for.
Okay. So just trying to think of if I had a restaurant and it was called Bob's Burgers. Well, somebody else there might already be a bobsburgers.com. But I don't know if I specialized in a certain type of burger, and I'm trying to come up with a crazy example.
Bob's Barbecue Burgers.
Okay, there you go.
Maybe you do grilling, and so you want to be bobsbarbecueburgers.com, or you just want to use a different extension at the end. Because now we have gone way past just the .coms and .orgs.
So tell us about those. There's the website addresses always end with something like .com or .org or .net. What do those different endings mean?
So the different endings are a way for the internet to kind of categorize your site as the way you would like it to be categorized, because now they have .me, which are typically personal domains. There's .salons if your organization is a salon. There's .lawyer now. So, originally the extensions were just .com, meaning commerce, .net, meaning network, .info, and .biz, .us. And now we have just moved into a whole new market of 2-letter extensions as well as 3-letter extensions as well as words. I just seen there's .social out and .app and . So we are getting very creative with our usernames and domain names.
So if someone is just getting started, if I'm just going online or preparing to go online with my business for the first time, should I try to if I were just starting Homewood Nation, for instance, should I try to get homewoodnation.com and homewoodnation.org and homewoodnation.net and every other possible ending for that I could? Or how do I choose?
How do you choose? I still highly recommend always going with the .com if you are a commerce or a business, because that's just standard. Everybody just assumes that you'll be at .com. Mm-hmm. So most people will just type in .com regardless. If you tell them, no, I'm .org, they'll be like, okay, .com. If you're an organization, automatically go with .org, because that distinguishes that you are an organization. The .info and .net and .biz helps with your SEOs, because then you own them all. But it's not necessary to own them all unless you have a competitor that will also try to own your domain.
Okay.
So, for instance, with the TechStart, I own TechStart.org. They own TechStart.com. Neither of us have purchased TechStart.info, though, or .net. They're still out there. And there's another organization called TechStart Artists, and they live on TechStartArtists.org. So,
okay.
If somebody else has your domain or, is running a similar domain to yours, you might want to capture all the rest of the domains that end in that, so that you have a higher presence when someone searches your name.
Okay. And you just referred to grabbing some of the extra endings for better SEO. Without going too far into it, can you just tell us what SEO is?
So SEO is your search engine optimization, and it's really how the internet indexes the information that it gets and returns the searches in your search results. So when you type in stuff like to Bing or Google, your SEOs help connect and index all the information together. For you as a business owner, you want to make sure that you create a plan for SEOs, and we will get to that in a couple of episodes, so that your search results you're on the first page. When you type in your organization's name, it comes up on the first page. Versus comes up on page 9. I really appreciate that I have done a lot of work with TechStart, that I actually come up above TechStart LLC, and they are a much more established firm than I am.
Okay, very good. So we are now going to attempt an experiment here on Tech Tuesday. All of Tech Tuesday is an experiment. Every week there's something new. And this week we are actually going to take a shot at doing a screen share so that we can actually show you some stuff as we're speaking here. Just to look at the actual process of registering a domain name. And I mentioned that Homewood Nation lives at homewoodnation.com, but I have not yet registered homewoodnation.net. So with Ms. Williams' assistance, we're going to see if we can actually pull this off live to kind of walk you through the process of registering a domain name. So, Ms. Williams, you want to take over from here?
I am ready to take over. So before you can actually register a domain's name, you need to actually do the research to determine if the domain name is available. Whosit.net is the best site to utilize. They basically manages everyone's domains. They'll tell you who owns a domain, if it is owned, or if it is available. So you simply type in whois.net, type in the domain name you're interested in, hit search. This site is actually available, so we can actually purchase it directly from them. But that will not include web hosting, as you can see. They'll only give you your domain name for a year. This one does include free web hosting from this organization. And it also includes spam, antivirus, and a live customer support. Over at Productivity, I use Bluehost because I prefer their web hosting service. So as I go to register this, I'll switch over to Bluehost, but using whosit.net is the best place to actually go and research if a domain is in use. I'll show you what it looks like if a domain is in use. And so we're going to search homewoodnation.com. It's already registered, and in addition, it'll tell you all the information about the person who has registered it, unless they have decided that that information should be private, which typically you have to pay an additional fee for.
Okay.
So, Homewood Nation is already registered, and it lets me know that. The best thing you can do on this site, though, it also tells me when Homewood Nation would expire. So sometimes people will let their domains expire, which I do not recommend. And if your domain expires and somebody is waiting to purchase it, that is what they will do. They will wait for yours to expire. There's usually about a 45-day window where it just sits in cyberspace if you don't renew it immediately.
Right.
And once it is released, then they will allow you to purchase it. Some people get in bidding wars, and sometimes you'll see a domain secured, but there's no information on it. And people do that for sites that are really popular or domain names that are popular. They had the opportunity to purchase them at some point in time, and so they did. And now they just keep holding on to it until it is available. Often, if you do enough research and legwork, you can find your domain for 50 cents, $1, and that's on special. Typically,
right.
And that's for the first year only, because at renewal, they will charge you the full fee. The average domain name costs anywhere between $8 and $45 per year. The $8 ones are typically the .orgs. The higher ones are typically the newer ones, like the .salon, .guru, .lawyer. A lot of people utilize GoDaddy to secure their information. I am going to stop sharing my screen for a minute so that I can put in my username and password for all that information.
Okay.
Just an extra level of security for myself.
Sure.
So while we're waiting, I will post the who is domain or website in the notes.
Right, there you go. www.whois.net.
And if you have any questions, feel free to also post them in that nice little side box. We can see it.
Yes, that was for members of the audience there. If you folks out there have any questions, at least I think we can have folks do that. I actually had a question pop into mind myself when
Okay.
it slipped away.
Oh.
Let's see here. So this is where we're glad that this is not real live TV where you pay like, $10,000 a minute. And you have to be chattering every single second.
Well, this is a casual conversation. So as we can see, homewoodnation.net, .biz, .co, .info, .me, all of those are available. I am a fan of the .cos. I really am. And that now stands for .company. I love the .me's if you want your own branding, if you're a blogger and you just want your own name done, the .me is great. But we are going to purchase homewoodnation.net. Now, here's something that you definitely need to know. Securing a domain is only the first step. You will still need to get web hosting and some other services in order to have a functional website and web presence. Okay. And as you can see, it'll tell you that you should automatically renew, which I highly recommend so that you never lose your own domain. You can the use privacy, which means it won't show up in your Who Is registry. Like we just seen, the original Homewood Nation provided all of your information. If you pay for the privacy for $9.99, it won't show your information. It'll just say unavailable.
Right.
Okay? And, of course, you have to sign your agreement and terms and conditions and things like that. For the most part, every year, the fee stays the same, unless you got an introductory rate like we talked about, and, of course, the next year it's going to go up. So I will check out and add this to my cart, but I'm not going to broadcast that live.
Can't imagine why.
Even though I do use some nice tools to do that. Those are the initial steps you need to secure your domain. And once you own your domain, now we can start talking about email at your domain, as well as getting web hosting service for your domain. And then you can even start looking at website development. But before you get to that third piece, you need to handle the other two, which is setting up email at your own domain. And you have multiple options. Sometimes whoever you purchase the domain from will automatically give you one free email address. Or you may need to still purchase an email account from whoever you purchase your domain from. Most people are giving out the first one free, but if you need any additional ones, they can run you a significant price.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that surprises me just because the hosting services that I've seen, when you get a domain name, they supply at least a couple of email addresses, like maybe 5.
Five would do it. Some places are up to offering 5 because it gets so competitive with web hosting that, okay, let's at least offer 5. I can tell you this, I am a huge Google Apps for Business user, and that's what I put a lot of my clients on. If you want to use Google Apps for Business, it costs you $50 for the year, and that's not for the domain. So the domain would be one fee, and then Google Apps is another fee of $50. But you get the entire Google Apps suite for a year for that user, which offers you Google Drive, a plethora of other apps within their system, some accounting software, and everything else that you would get in a regular Gmail account. So it depends on your needs, I would say, when you start to pick your email provider. But as far as your domain, there you go. You have to research it and then secure it. Those are the first two steps. It's highly recommended for you to purchase it for 5 years at one time because it shows your site has longevity when we're talking about SEOs again. So if you're only doing it every year, it's like, okay, they won't even rank you as high. But when you buy it for 5 years, it says, I am going to be committed to this domain name.
Mm-hmm.
And so, the algorithm knows that there's longevity in that.
And that really ties in with anything else as far as actually running a business. You want to have at least an outline, right, for at least 5 years.
Correct.
Definitely a strong business plan for, say, 3 years, but at least have an outline for 5 years, right?
Correct. And I recommend, if you can, purchase the 5 years. The 5 years will be like, okay, I have that domain for the next 5 years. There's no one who can come in and swoop it off of you. It's yours. It's secured. It's done. Even if you decide that right now I'm not going to put up a website, still own your domain. People always ask, well, I'm not ready for a website. That's okay. Own your domain. Secure your domain. It's like site control for the internet. Think of it that way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because that's what your domain name gives you.
You may not be ready to do your website or go entirely online for another year, but when you are ready, your domain will be there. Your domain name will be there waiting for you to build on it, if you will.
Correct. So if you see land that you like and you're like, I would love to build a house on there, but I'm not ready to build the house, but the land is, buy the land. Buy your domain name.
Yeah.
It is the most starting point. It's also going to be the hub for all your online content because you own your domain, which means you've copyrighted your domain. And most times all websites are copyrighted. It has a blanket copywriting on it. Yes, you still should file with the official U.S. government, but as long as you put that little C at the bottom and it's on your domain, you have some wiggle room these days on that. But
it's
you
yours.
want to own your content. I think that's the biggest mistake that most business owners make. They think, oh, I'm up on a social network, and so I'll post all my information there. Well, that social network now owns that content. You have no recourse to get it back. It's not yours. If they delete your account tomorrow, it's just gone. But when you own your domain, when you publish to that domain, you can back that information up and archive it and throw it on a hard drive and then put it in a secure location.
Yeah, so I want to be sure that folks are really getting this about the vulnerability, if you will, on social media. And this is not to discourage anybody from using social media. And in fact, we're going to devote an entire segment to that later, how to kind of dive into the social media pool. But we should always be aware that that your account on Facebook is controlled by Facebook, and if for some reason they decide to delete you, you're gone. And all of the stuff that you had posted on Facebook is also gone, and there's no getting it back. So anything that you really consider to be of any significance or importance whatsoever, you need to have that somewhere other than on Facebook or other than on any of these other social media sites on your own domain.
on on your own domain, and then share it through all of your social networks so that everybody's coming back to your domain.
Right, right.
And that's the way it goes. You
Okay.
kind of want to make a circle. Everybody you want to come back to your hub, your site, your hub, your location where you are controlling the content and all the activities that go on.
For instance, the video for this hangout will soon be archived at youtube.com, but not just youtube.com. It's going to be youtube.com/Homewood Nation. and and we'll be linking to it all over the place, of course. And everything related to Homewood Nation eventually comes back to and is connected with homewoodnation.com. Going forward, there'll be stuff connected to homewoodnation.net as we explore using that. But those are the basics for us of establishing your domain name, securing your domain name as a first step towards taking your business online. Tune in with us next week as we begin moving a little further down this road to help to bring you to the point where you can have a lively, vibrant, and we hope profitable internet presence. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Good night, Ms. Williams.
Good night, Mr. Green.
See you.